be careful with using pay as the reason for quiet hunting. For me, quiet hunting is when you are looking for your next opportunity. And I want to say opportunity, not position, because they're two different things.
Mhm.
And you're doing it while maintaining your excellence in your current role. And what makes it unique is that you're doing it under the radar without the sacrifice being known to your peers and your supervisor.
I used to be like, I wish people could hear the conversations I'm having in private with these awesome people. So, guys, hi, this is Barika from Simply Unique Coaching. If you can't tell, I'm excited. I'm excited. I literally, and if you know me personally, you know I'm not a fluffy person. So, I'm not going to say something just to make somebody feel good. So, when I say this is what I mean. I am literally on today with one of my favorite people in the world. She is amazing. She is kind, great hearted person, just had even how we met each other is just kind of like we met each other and then we just kind of got in each other's circle. I just love her so much because she's one of the most genuine people, great mom, great wife, just will give you the shirt off her back, can cook like nobody's business. And really what as far as when it comes to business, what really leads me to look at her and admire her is she has a set of giftings that is very unique. I have not found this set of giftings in anyone else outside of her. And I've worked with hundreds of people, okay? And even at one point in time, we were in a volunteer organization and she was working with me. Did a fantastic job, amazing job. So just I've gotten to know her personally, also have been able to see her work ethic because we were volunteers. And so when people show up for years as volunteers and they're in excellence, then they have great hearts. So anyway, I feel like I can talk on and on about her, but this is my friend, Monchaily, but she also is the owner of Excel Books, right? And so with Excel Books, I'm going to let her introduce herself. And I know I kind of did it, but I'm going to let her introduce herself and talk about her business. And we're just going to let the conversation flow. But there are some things that you want to stick around for because we're going to talk about quiet hunting. That is not a term you've heard before, but I bet after this conversation, it is going to pick up. All right, Monchaily, go ahead.
Oh my goodness, how do I follow that introduction? Thank you so much. It is an absolute privilege being on with you. I absolutely look up to you and your character, and I've learned so much from you over the years. So it's a blessing to even sit at your feet. Um, but yes, Excel Books, we are a tech support company. We help entrepreneurs and job seekers make an impression through services from anything from web design to resumes, you name it, we've got it.
Absolutely. And I think I alluded to the fact that she has a unique set of giftings, but I didn't tell you what they were. So actually she is like I've worked with so many people. And one of the things that when I'm working with people, I try to figure out their core personality because that helps me to know how to work with them and how to just be able to communicate well with them and how to help inspire them and motivate them. And just also knowing their giftings. And I know kind of where I can say, hey, we need your help on this, or I can help pull out the best that is in them and help them to be more efficient and to feel like they're doing a great job in the things that they're really naturally good at, right? Which is wisdom. If you're a leader, that's wisdom. Okay. Don't try to make people do stuff they can't really do. Like if it's anyway, we won't even talk about that today. I have other videos on that. I'll link one here. All right. So, but what makes her unique is she is very organized and logical and just very methodical, but she's also creative. And you typically do not find those combination of things in the same person. You'll find logical, analytical, methodical, problem solving in certain people, and then you'll find creative giftings. But normally, like creative people are really free spirits and free flowing, and it's anything goes. And it's like we're going on a trip. They're like, okay, they're not going to ask you how many days, where you going, how much money they need. They just say okay. So those are typically your creative people. Not always, but a lot of times that's what you'll find. But she has that unique blend. And because of that, she is going to do and has been doing amazing things for small business owners. So I want you to tell me, like, how did you start your business? What inspired you to start Excel Books?
Oh, that's such a great question. So it started for two reasons. So first it was because I had my son. I just fell in love with this little boy. I was like, oh my gosh, I don't want to leave his cute little face. I want to be there for every little thing, every toe jam. And But over time, as I was doing things, I wasn't sure what to name myself in the beginning. And I was like, what kind of company name do I come up with? What do I focus on? And I just started doing all of those gifts that you mentioned. And I got known for something I didn't expect. And that was Excel workbooks. They loved my spreadsheets and they're like, oh my gosh, it's organized, it's pretty. Can you do that again? And I thought, I'm going to name my company after that. So I always remember where I got my start. But as far as like what made me really do the business, it was really the painful journey. Um, I found as a business owner that it was just crazy trying to figure out where to go for everything. You got one vendor for a logo, another one for a website, another one for EINs. I was like, this is complicated. I shouldn't have to go everywhere. I just have a dream. Why can't I just start my dream? And I thought, that's it. I'm going to help everyone else start their dreams. And I'm just going to keep learning knowledge. And then I can just pour that into other people.
I love that. When you were talking about, I know Excel books well, I was like, I know she knows what a pivot table is. I'm pretty sure she's used gradient colors and stuff to make your charts look, I mean, not your charts, but the stuff look fancy. So yeah, only people who really know Excel. And listen, I know y'all, the younger generation, listen, I know y'all like Google. I bless your heart. I am not a team Google. I'm not a team Apple. I know people love their Apples after 2 phones died on me after they did upgrades. And now we know that they do it intentionally. But also with Google, if you were raised on Microsoft products, you can't look back. That's just my opinion. What do you think about that?
Oh, yeah. I love Excel. I've tried it all. I've even tried one on the Mac, and it's just not the same. It's you got to have Excel. This I think if people knew the scope of what you could do with it, they wouldn't look at what I call the mini versions of Excel and gravitate towards that.
Exactly. Like if you just need it for basic stuff, then go with Google. But like if you want to make your stuff stand out and be able, listen, I will tell you literally, I will proof check my stuff. Just a hint or a clue for people. I will proof check, like if I'm writing an email out, like a newsletter, I will proof it by having it read back to me using the read aloud feature. And then because sometimes I may not have someone next to me that can proofread and say, oh, you left this word out or whatever. So I will literally have Excel read it back to me. And I'm like, oh, I need to change this. Or, oh, I don't like the way, or even if I feel like, okay, I want to get this thought out, I just dictate into my microphone and it starts typing it out into Excel. I mean, not Excel, Word, So Excel, I still use as well, not as deep as I used to when I was an analyst. Tell me about one of your favorite client stories. You like your the one that's most near and dear to your heart. Your client stories. Yeah.
Oh, such a toughie. I think I have to go half and half on that one. So I'll have to say my favorite client is the one that quote unquote made it big. Um, it was a barber that I met when I was in Florida. And at the time, I was really still trying to get my feet wet in the business, trying to figure out how to sell myself. Wasn't even sure if I would make a client. And we had one conversation and he said, "You know what? I want you to help me out. Can you make my website? You're really affordable." And I thought, great. Now, I was a novice at the time. I know so much more now than I did then, but this person was patient and walked with me on my journey step by step. And we went from, and I say we because I felt like the two of us were on the journey together. We went from him just selling his product in his barber shop to being featured on Good Morning America, and having locations in like 4 different states, and auditioning for Shark Tank. So that inspires me every day because I remember, okay, I have a little bit of a skill because they couldn't have made it there had I not applied a little bit. So I said, okay, I, I'm not that bad.
Yeah. And she's modest too. So don't listen. The dude made it from Shark Tank. Okay. So anyway, so she touched something there I want to hit on because I think that that's important, especially like with this particular podcast about whatever we call it nowadays. With this particular interview, I'm not fancy. Sometimes I am, but today no. um, but I think as business owners, it's important to know that as you're growing your business, when you are developing, there's a grace that you will get for some people to come up as far as clients that will work alongside of you. Like I remember the first, I believe in doing beta launches when it comes to certain products and programs and stuff that I have. So I'll literally do like a smaller launch to a smaller group so I can get the feedback. And I typically do those live. And then I will like roll it out once it has been perfected to the masses. And then I'll also build it out like throughout time. So I'll go back and make a couple of iterations. So like the 90-day leadership bootcamp I have, I think it's on this fourth iteration, which is probably the final iteration. Unless I'm working with a group that is belonging to a company or whatnot. But I say that to say, like, don't be afraid to step out there and try your product. And I will say this too. There's something to be said about rolling out something because I've literally seen one company, which I absolutely love, think they're amazing. They had literally kind of an overnight success. It really wasn't overnight, but it was like when the product blew up, it blew up and they were not ready for all of the traffic and all of the things that happen. So just be okay with knowing like you are in a process, you are growing and things may not go well the first time and just try to make the experience better each and every time. Okay? When you realize there's a problem, go ahead and fix that problem and then think about okay, the next time I launch something, what do I want to do differently? Do you have any thoughts that you want to share with that?
Yes, I'm glad you asked. Um, that's so true what you said as far as constantly trying to do more as you learn more. This particular client is one of those people that I was able to do that with, and it was really humbling because, like I said, when I started, I didn't really know a lot of platforms. I was kind of getting my feet wet in the web design, and after a few years, I said, "Wait a minute, I shouldn't have built his site on this platform. I should have built it here because it would have saved him money and it has SEO content." So what I did, as humbling as it was, I reached out and I said, "Hey, can I rebuild your site? I'm not going to charge you for it. I know more now. And I just want to test it out and see if you like this better." And he's like, "Absolutely." And so we built it on a new platform. He saved money. I learned more information. And every time I learned something, he's the first to volunteer and say, "Hey, pick me. You could test anything with me." And because of that, I now know more and can give my future clients more.
That's so awesome. I love that. Like literally my heart is like smiling on the inside. That's like the best kind of client to have, the ones that are flexible and they're like, "Listen, I know you're starting and I want to help you and you're helping me and we're both learning together." And even as okay, I'm going to say this, even when we are on the other side of it, and when we are the actual clients, we want to give people grace because we never know what people are going through and we always want to sow those good seeds, treat people the way you want to be treated. Something that just came back to my remembrance is that you are also an author of not just one, but I believe 2 books, right? You might be on more than that, or at least you're in a second book. Do you wanna talk about, briefly what those books are about?
Oh, yes. So, yes, I've published 3 works, but 2 that are specific for me. So my first book was Becoming the Shiro, and it is a mini excerpt about my journey into starting the business. So if you were watching and you're thinking, "I want to know more," get that book. It's on Amazon and it's also on Barnes and Noble.
And we'll
Um,
put the link for that in the description of this video.
let's see, my second book was actually a lot more dear to my heart. It's The Family Tree. And this family tree book is very unique. I noticed that when you're looking online, all the family tree books are only one-sided. They're pretty much this little genealogy branch where you're trying to write in little bitty boxes, but that doesn't tell you about the person. It doesn't tell you their accomplishments. It doesn't tell you how many kids they had and what this one kid did. It doesn't tell you that they had a Nobel Peace Prize. It doesn't tell you those things. What about grandma's recipe? That apple pie before she passed away. Like, I want to know the recipe. So I made a family tree book that's more personal. It gives me both those keepsakes. It gives me the genealogy that I can write in much bigger font for those that are older and wiser. Because I don't know about you, my family tree comes from my seniors in the family, and they're not reading these tiny little boxes to figure out where to write in there. They need something they can look at. So I made a very large print book, and I added something that I haven't seen in any other family tree book, which is a medical history section per person. So instead of us getting into, because right now there's so many illnesses and things going on in the world. And a lot of the reason we're struggling is we don't know what's in our family because no one wrote it down. But now, as you have those conversations, you can jot it in that book. So that's what my family tree book is about.
And I think that that's important because I even have a friend who mentioned that they were having a health issue and they didn't know what was going on. And when they got diagnosed by the doctor, they went and told some of the other family members, and they were like, "Oh yeah, I had that." And then as they talked to just individual family members that were of the same gender, they were like, I had that." And they were like, "Well, why didn't anybody tell us that this is something that we need to keep an eye out for?" Right. So it's one of those things, right? Um, I want to kind of switch gears for a moment. And I also want to talk about, because you also do resume writing, right? As well.
I do.
Okay. And so let's say that there is an employee that is in a difficult work situation, maybe a toxic work situation, and they are realizing that I need to have an exit strategy. Let's talk about the quiet hunting. I know that that came up and just, like I have some of the best conversations with people. I'm telling you, you need to have good conversations with people. Like your brain should be growing as you're having these conversations, and the people you're talking to should make you better. They should challenge you, they should inspire you, and they should make you better. Just saying. So we were having just a conversation when the topic, or it was coined as quiet hunting, and I was like, I said, people talk about quiet quitting and quiet firing. Well, I don't know if quiet firing is a thing, but I can tell you, having been a leader, it is a thing. Just saying, I don't think that we would never normally say that. And like with me, I am a person that's upfront. So if my employees is getting ready to get booted, they will know well in advance because I give you. I believe in sharing with you what the problem is. I believe in giving you a plan and working with you on a plan to help resolve the problem. I then believe in, okay, we developed the plan. Was the plan followed? Okay, now we need to start documenting. And then by the time I have to have somebody go out the door, it's well known, and I still have good relationships with them. I still have good relationships. So when you do it the right way, the people that you terminate are not going to be upset because they were well placed in notice in advance, and they knew exactly what the problem was. And it was just a matter of maybe a decision having to be made or whatever the situation. Maybe the company had to do layoffs or whatever. But if you have a good relationship with your employees, people shouldn't be upset. It would be very, very rare. Like they might have a moment, but like literally, I can say of the ones that I've ever had to terminate, I still have decent relationships with them. Like I don't have any problem. Like one reached out to me afterwards and they were like, "Oh, I remember being on the team," in a nostalgic way. All right. So anyway, so let's talk about quiet hunting. What is quiet hunting?
So for me, quiet hunting is when you are looking for your next opportunity. And I don't want to say opportunity, not position, because they're two different things.
Mhm.
And you're doing it while maintaining your excellence in your current role. And what makes it unique is that you're doing it under the radar without the sacrifice being known to your peers and your supervisor. I've actually done quiet hunting in multiple jobs before. I hate to say that, but sometimes you just have to move forward. But I think there's a few, like, I don't know how to word it nicely, but I'll say there's a few requirements that you want to do before you start quiet hunting. I think the first thing you want to do is make sure you know why you're going. It's absolutely vital. A lot of times we just look and say, you know what? I don't like my boss today. I'm just going to go. That's not a reason to go. It's not. It's not why you quiet hunt. You quiet hunt for a very specific reason. It has to be something that isn't all emotional, because if it's emotional, that emotion's going to carry on into the next position. And you don't want to do that to yourself. Um, so you got to have a self check first. I hope that makes sense.
Oh, it does. Absolutely. Keep going. Yeah. Yes. I totally agree with you. I have, yes. Now that you're talking about it, I'm like, oh, yes, I have definitely done some quiet hunting before. Yes.
Yeah, yeah. So you do your self check to make sure that you're not leaving for the wrong reasons. And then you got to really think about what it is that you want. So knowing why and then what.
Mhm.
And this is crucial because when you're really hunting and you're doing it strategically, because I'm strategic, I don't believe in just throwing out an application. You need to have a plan. You need to have an army, an arsenal at your disposal to help you find the right role. So I use recruiters, I use job search platforms, and I use networking. But before I even get to any of those resources, I have to ask myself the hardest question: what am I really looking for? Because there's something from my current role that I'm not getting.
Mm.
And when you figure out what it is you want, you can determine if the hunting needs to be internal or external. So a lot of times people look at hunting and think, oh, that means I'm just leaving the company, leaving everybody. I don't want anything to do with that. That's not true. You can be hunting inside of your company and get promoted, but you can't find that role if you don't know what you want. So I always start with this self reflection of, okay, what am I missing? And a lot of times for me, I'm missing that creative element. I
Mm.
have to have somewhere in my job where I can be myself, where I can showcase that I like to create and design and just kind of, go off grid, if you will. I have to have some element of that autonomy. Um, but and it goes way beyond pay. So I'm, I hope I'm not jumping around too much, but be careful with using pay as the reason for quiet hunting. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't want an increase. Increase is great. We definitely want to thrive, but your increase has certain factors. Number one, you've got to earn it. You have to model the worth of the paycheck that you are calling forth in the universe. So if you want six figures, you should be producing a six-figure behavior, six-figure posture, six-figure conversations. People should feel your worth before you ask for it. I think about that before I've never asked for a raise, not once in my entire career. I've never gone to a boss or their supervisor and said, I need more money. I've never asked for it. Why? Because I let my work ethic and my character speak for me, and it creates that door. So I've never had to ask. Now, if I'm at a job and the pay isn't right, I then have to ask myself, do I see anywhere else in the company where I could get that pay? And is it worth my time? Because there's always opportunity. Remember that whether you're in your company or in another one, there's always somewhere that you can grow. But is that the opportunity you really want? So I've been at companies that had tons of options. And I said, you know what? None of these fit me, not a single one. So now I need to hunt. I'm going to hunt externally. And when I hunt externally, you have to kind of walk a fine line when you're
Mhm.
doing that.
Mhm.
So when I hunt, I have my recruiters, and picking the right recruiter is crucial.
Mhm.
Don't just pick the first thing that you see. You want to interview the recruiter before you sign on with them.
Yeah.
That may mean giving them a call. It may mean going to their office, and you need to find out what kind of specific jobs they fill in for. So, for example, one of the questions I ask recruiters is, when's the last time you filled a position that's over 70K? Do you do only labor intensive roles or do you do project management and IT? Do you have connections with people in those arenas?
Mm.
What's the typical time frame that is needed for you to find a role in that area? And you want to ask that because every recruiter is different. You have some that are just labor. Those are more of your, we're going to go sweep the floors. We're going to do, assembly lines. We're going to do construction kind of thing. But then you'll have tech and administration, and they'll say, okay, we get you in front of interviews where you're in an office. And then you have your executive recruiters,
Mm.
and those are hard to get into. But if
Mhm.
you can get into them, it can change the game.
Mhm.
Executive recruiters are pretty much what you would call your final level, your boss level, of finding the next job. And by the time you're there, you should know those questions that I mentioned like that. Because they're going to come at you real quick and say, okay, what's your name? All right. How many years of experience? What job are you looking for? How much do you want to get paid? What's your ideal work environment? What kind of boss do you have? What's your personality type? They're going to ask you these things and you've got to rattle it off, and then they're going to line you up with the right person. So that's where you start with the quiet hunting.
I want to add something there because you were mentioning like the way that you operate in an organization, especially when you realize that you need to start looking. And what you were saying, I was like, wow, I was like, nobody necessarily explained it like that, but that's literally has been part of it. I haven't used recruitment agencies very often, but I have used them before, especially when I was working overseas. Well, that was a whole nother thing because there was a particular organization I was wanting to get into, but they were fantastic. Ooh, fantastic. And so one of the things that I think also we need to add, because it came up to me when you were talking, which you shared fabulous tips, is that you want to have those good relationships where you're at currently and you want to keep them. And you also want to do excellent work because in my case, I had to use different people as referrals. And so sometimes it wasn't my immediate boss because I didn't necessarily want them knowing that I was hunting for a new job. And because depending on the situation, and actually the two times that I really did quiet hunting, it was like toxic. Every other time the leaders knew. So that's another thing. If you're able to communicate with your leaders and you feel comfortable enough to say, "Hey, I'm going to start looking for another job," or "I think that my time is up here," then you have good leaders. If you feel like, "Oh my gosh, I can't tell them anything," listen, they will know when they get my 2 weeks notice or my 1 month notice. That's so that kind of just tells you, you know. And so the times that I've had to do that, it was that second scenario. And because I had good relationships with people who also worked up under them, maybe I couldn't, excuse me, maybe I couldn't ask my immediate supervisor for a recommendation, like what they call a referral. Like when they check and say, "Hey, have this person work," but I could ask their second in command, or I could ask somebody else who was in another type of leadership within the organization. So you want to you want to make sure that you have that person's confidence, because typically in toxic work environments, everybody knows they're toxic, or most people, the leader tends to be the last one to know. And that's why it's a toxic work environment. But I was able to get other people on the staff that were in a higher level ranking than me to be able to write the letters of recommendation if I needed that, or to write the email of recommendation, or to be able to be available for the call in case they were like, "Hey, we just need to verify that this person worked here, Brika worked here, blah, blah, blah." So that's important. So, but what Monchaily is sharing is amazing. Did you have anything else you wanted to add to that?
I did, only because you touched on some stuff. I'm like, "Ooh, you got my wheels going." Um, so yes, it's very important not only to decide if you should tell your boss, but be strategic when you find the next job and how you tell your boss too. So on one hand, there's the referral side of it, but sometimes the opportunity that you need is connected to someone that you're working with now and you don't even know it. Uh, I have had so many job offers that have come through just colleagues, people that I didn't even work that closely with them. We just happened to have a conversation or two throughout my tenure at the company, and they heard that I was looking, and they're like, "Wait a minute, my cousin has a business and they would love to have you," or "My ex-boss has this business and you would be great at it." And you never know, you may not have to look for the company. Your job may already be in your circle. So you want to be careful with that. But you also want to think about how to tell your boss once you found the job. So a lot of people, once you've finally gotten the job, you take it as an opportunity to kind of kick them where it hurts and say all the things you don't want to, you wouldn't say in person, just kind of kick them while they're down. And that's actually going to hurt you if you do that. And it doesn't feel that way at the time because you're thinking, "Oh, well, I'm gone. I'm not coming back. I don't have to do this." Not necessarily. You would be surprised. Sometimes that can be treated as, a type of harassment in the way that you resign if you don't word it right. You could burn bridges with connections that have already given you referrals and they'll take it back. I actually had a friend go through this where when they left, they didn't leave in a very professional way. And one of their colleagues had already given them a referral. So when the company called and said, "Tell me about this person and their character," they said, "You know what? I really like them, but I don't know what I saw just now. I'm not sure you want them in your company." And so they missed that opportunity because they couldn't keep a level head about themselves. So you want to think about that. And the last thing I'll mention on the recruiter side of why I use recruiters, because a lot of people don't really know the power of it. The resume game has changed and it changes literally almost every 3 to 4 years. You start off with, okay, just a resume. Then they say, nope, I want these particular things at the top of your resume. Now we have scan bots. So if you don't list certain keywords in your resume a certain number of times, the online application won't even look at you. You immediately get denied because they didn't see management written 5 times in your resume. And this can be really hard to get in front of the right people. And sometimes the company you really want, you will never get in on a company. I actually have one locally that it would pay everything I want and then some, but they never, there's articles on it actually, you could look it up. They never hire from an online application ever.
Oh,
Doesn't
interesting.
matter who you are, doesn't matter how skilled you are, they do not. But you will see it online.
Mhm.
The only way to get in is one of two ways, either someone you know
Mhm.
or the right recruiter.
Mhm.
And you want that recruiter so that they can speak on your behalf and push your resume forward to get you where you want to go.
And I was thinking, so I'm going to speak from the perspective of a hiring manager. So I've hired managers, managers teams, and all that kind of thing. And so I remember one particular team I had. We were starting off, so we kind of just had to hire who we had could hire because we needed to get this thing up and running. And there was a sense of urgency where things had to be done by a certain time. So we're like, hey, you know the business, you can breathe, you got blood running through your veins. Come on over, And that was I learned since then. That was my first time like actually having to hire employees. But I learned after, from that experience, no, 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 no. I need to know that you belong on this team because it's my job to create the culture of the team, right? But I remember we had 3 bad apples on that particular team, and all 3 of them decided to quit, which was fine, which actually was a blessing in disguise. Because one of them, I would say, good morning to everyone on the team. Good morning. He would say, every morning. And I'm like, that's just not even wisdom. I'm like, I get to decide if you get a raise or not. And that's your response to me. I just say, good morning. I'm being my pleasant self using the manners that my mom and whoever taught me. And hmm, so I was like, okay, whatever. So he was one. And I remember the day he turned in his resignation, he had this smirk on his face like he thought I was gonna be upset. I was like, oh, okay, thank you. Yeah. But one of the other individuals, she had kind of gotten into that bad vibe with those other 2 individuals. And so she left and she left in, like I said, not the right way per se. And then she sent me like an email or something. And she was like, hey, she was like, I need a referral for this particular job. Can you write me a referral? And I just never responded to her because, again, like I said at the beginning of this podcast or video, whatever this thing is, when I said at the beginning is I'm not a fluffy person. So if you gave me crap work, I'm going to give you a crap review. So the best thing I could do is not respond to the person you're asking me to. Because if I'm going to tell them the truth, I will tell them the truth. And so I just never responded to her. I just never wrote it up because if I had to write it, I was going to have to tell the truth. I'm not going to sugarcoat it if you're a terrible employee. I won't. I won't. I won't. Okay, get off my soapbox. Any last thoughts or anything you want to add before we wrap up, Monchaily?
Final thought is I want to leave it with some encouragement. When it comes to quiet hunting, and I don't know, I can only speak from my own experience. Sometimes as you've moved up the ladder, you've gotten a really good job, you've got really good benefits, and you've had toxic people telling you that you're not good enough. There comes a stage, be it momentarily or a long time, where you start to question if you should go for another job, if you're good enough for what you really want to go for. And you start wondering, well, maybe I should just stick it out. A lot of people I know, a lot of coworkers, a lot, won't leave, won't hunt, won't search because they're thinking this is as good as it gets. And if they're treating me this way, then obviously I'm not good enough for where I want to go. And I just want to say that that is not the truth. And you have to remind yourself of who you are and the gifts inside of you and the talent that you can bring to a company. And don't let that light be dimmed just because some people aren't treating it the right way. I love what one of my great leaders said. They said, if you don't know the true purpose of a thing, you'll abuse it. If
Mhm.
you don't know the purpose of a car, you'll try to plant flowers in it. Well, if they don't know the true purpose of your talent, they'll use you the wrong way. But that doesn't mean that you don't have talent. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't be used. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't go forward. So I want to encourage you if you're thinking, I really want to go, but I'm not sure if I'm good enough for this next role. Try it anyway. The highest paying jobs I've ever received have come from me stepping out of my comfort zone, going after something I had no idea that I could qualify for, and then being pleasantly surprised and thinking, oh my gosh, I guess I am good enough. So, yes, you can. Yes, you can do it. And be patient on the journey. I'm going to say this because I feel like I can't leave without saying it. Otherwise, that would not be me. Job hunting, whether it's quiet or loud, is not for the faint of heart. It is not a quick thing. It is not a overnight success all the time. It's not, okay, I put in an application today and tomorrow I get a new job. It could take several months. I know one person, it took them 2 years to find the job they really wanted. And so think about that when you begin this process, because you may need to endure the job that you're in long enough to thrive until the new opportunity comes along. But don't give up. Don't look at the time clock and say, well, by now I should have it. Take that time limit off. Don't put that added pressure on yourself. You're already feeling pressure where you are. Remove the limits, remove the shackles, give yourself grace, and say, okay, I'm hunting. I'm going to hunt until I find what I want or until a door opens that is what I want.
I love that. And I'm going to add this because this is me being on both sides as an employer, employee, and a hiring manager, and all blah blah blah, all that stuff. I would also add, once you secure your new position, don't tell your new supervisor exactly where it is, even if you have a great relationship with them. Like, so if you're like, you know, you're going to be working for ABC 123 company, I don't ever communicate that to them. Like, I might tell them like, oh, I'm getting ready to work. Like when I moved to Abu Dhabi, and I love the company that I was working for, like loved them. They were amazing that I worked with. And they knew I was going to work in Abu Dhabi, but they didn't know the exact name of the organization that I was going to be working for in Abu Dhabi. You know, I just think that's a protection on your end, because sometimes, and it might not even be your boss, it might be a coworker or something. You don't want somebody calling up the other company that's ready to hire you and telling them something that caused them not to hire you. Because there have been situations too where sometimes bosses will get desperate and they're like, oh, I need this person. And I've seen that happen actually internally within an organization. Like a person wants to get promoted to another team or another department, and that supervisor is so reliant upon that person, instead of doing the right thing and saying, hey, okay, let's hire a new person and have you train the new person, where they will call the other department and say like, oh no, this person isn't going to be a good employee, good fit, I wouldn't hire them. And like I said, I've worked for a lot of great employers, and I haven't necessarily had that happen, thank God. But I had the wisdom to know, just, I'm not going to tell you exactly where I'm going. I'll tell you the industry. I can tell you maybe even the town or whatever, but I'm not going to tell you, oh, I'm going to work for 123 company. Just, that's just my 2 cents.
I was like, that's so good. I was like, make sure you don't mention it on LinkedIn as well. Just going to put that out there, because you may not have told your boss in person, you may not have called them, but the second it's on LinkedIn, everyone knows where you are. So think about that.
Maybe wait a year after you're in that good comfy job, then you can put it on LinkedIn. Give a good 12 months. Pass the temporary. What's it, the little 90-day period? Pass that 4 times over. Then put it on your LinkedIn. When you were talking earlier, I was thinking about like the bad job or the toxic job that you can't really tell them that you're leaving. Is like being in a toxic relationship, because you were saying like how sometimes, like if someone's in an abusive relationship with a person, that person will attack your identity, and it starts to undermine, and you start to question yourself. And so if you stay in that relationship for 20 years and you could have been with fabulous him or her or whatever, if you would have left a long time ago, then, yeah, just find your greener pastures. And you know what, even if you make a mistake, even if you say, oh, I shouldn't have left this or for that, there's always other opportunities. You're not, don't be confined. I remember having a conversation with my mom many, many years ago. And she was like, I guess she was concerned because I was in college. She was like, well, you keep switching jobs. And she grew up in the era where people retired from companies, for 30 years and all that kind of stuff. And thank God I was one of the last people to get a pension. Like I got a pension coming. Come on now. I need to check in and see how my numbers are looking. Yes. Anyway, but she was, and I told her, I said, Mom, companies are not loyal to employees. And this is back in the 2000s. Like, I believe in working hard. I believe in working in excellence. But I always knew at the end of the day, the company's going to do what's best for the company because the company's job is to make money, unless they're a nonprofit, like find out the status. But if they are a nonprofit or not for profit, if then they might operate a little bit differently. However, for profit companies, the goal is to make money. So they're going to do whatever it takes to make money. Okay, Monchaily. And if people want to get in contact with you and your fabulous brain and your awesome, awesome, excellent skills, how can they reach you?
You can reach me online at xelbooks.com, or you can hit me up on Facebook or Instagram.
Okay. Are you on LinkedIn as well?
I am on LinkedIn. That's under my name, though. That's
Okay.
under Monchaily, Monchaily.
Okay, so I'll be sure to make sure that we have the information from Monchaily, so it'll be in the video description. Make sure you check it out. And like I said, I'm not a fluffy person. So like I've known, gosh, I don't know how many years we've known each other, but well over 10 years, I think at this point. Well over 10 years. So I've been able to see her character in the 4 seasons of life, and she's always been amazing, and she's always been true to herself and just a good person, a good, genuine person. So with that being said, guys, make it a great day. Take care. Bye.